What's up, geeks? My name is Joey, otherwise known as the Iron Cowboy Gunner Lang, back here on When Geeks Collide with another DC Multiverse McFarlane figure review. And I decided to take the approach that Steve took with his Disney Plus Marvel Legends wave. And that is to forego the unboxing and just review all these figures. However, one thing I will be doing differently is I will be building the Dark Father Build-A-Figure series, Build-A-Figure that is a part of this series. This whole wave is for the Dark Father Build-A-Figure from the DC Dark Knights Death Metal event. I will go in numerical order from the number of the figure in the wave and so on and so forth. So, without further ado, let's get started. And up first, we have a character known as the Robin King, which, if I am to paraphrase, is basically a version of Bruce Wayne from the Dark Multiverse, who, instead of turning to heroism after his parents were murdered in that alley, very quickly turned to a life of evil, heinous villainy and crime, and went on a murderous rampage and became this persona known as the Robin King. But I will read the card to you to show you exactly what his synopsis is as it pertains to the DC Death Metal event, which admittedly I haven't read a whole lot of. I have read several single issues, tie-ins, and main series issues about it, but there's just so many tie-ins and such that I just could not keep up, and haven't really gotten to reading the whole thing yet, outside of getting reviews from other YouTube channels and articles. So I like to feel like I'm fairly caught up on it, but if my information is at all skewed, please let me know down in the comments. So, as is customary with McFarlane's figures, DC Multiverse figures, they come with these trading cards, which I stick in a little card collector binder, but I am currently in the process of getting a new one to fit more of these cards in there, so I won't be throwing them in there today. But anywho, so Robin King from Dark Knights Death Metal. Real name, Bruce Wayne. Height, 5 foot 6 inches. Weight, 84 pounds. Out of the most sinister corner of the Dark Multiverse comes Robin King, a young version of Bruce Wayne who's chosen an unexpected, horrific path to follow. Rather than becoming Batman, this troubled Bruce embraced his inner darkness at a very young age, donning his own Robin costume and devoting his life to evil. His utility belt is filled to the brim with weapons designed to defeat every hero in the DC multiverse, making Robin King the most sadistic soldier in the Batman Who Laughs' evil army. See? Told you it was extreme. But while we're looking at this, I'm just going to mention, I'm not the biggest fan of them using the figure photography for the pictures on the cards. Don't get me wrong, it's cool. There's absolutely an audience for that, and I can appreciate that. But I just tend to prefer the source material art instead. But let's get right to reviewing the figure. So, first off, comes with a stand, and he's a very much smaller scale than the typical 7-inch scale McFarlane figures. Now, it seems that this particular figure is a lot of reusage from the Damian Wayne Robin, as you saw on the channel recently. So like you see with the legs, there's a single joint in the knee. I would much prefer if there was two, but I'm not going to nitpick too much with that. And there's also the same problem with the elbow joint, but where it differs is, look at these hands, the claws on the hands. The figure did come with 2 replacement hands of different shapes, like a gun grip hand, like most have, and a fist, I believe. But I like this open claw look. Now, you can see that it is a lot like the Damian Wayne Robin again, in like how like the how the top portion of his uniform kind of drapes over the waistline. And where it differs is, like, obviously the color of it. The face looks a lot like one of those DC metal Crow Robin figures, which there was 3 variants of that I was lucky enough to get back when they were still out. Anywho, I like this. I like the material of the feathering on the top of his cape on his shoulders. It's obviously not a feather material, but it is this like very light, malleable rubber plastic deal. So it gives a nice effect to, like, a nice likeness to feathers. However, unfortunately, the crown here that's supposed to be, like, I guess, reminiscent of like a robin's nest made of sticks and such is also made of that rubber. So if I'm to be nitpicky, I would much prefer that they would be the harder plastic, but it is what it is. And it's still, honestly, a sick looking figure. It's imposing, demonic. It really captures the feel that the writers were looking for when they introduced this character into the DC death metal story. Now, unfortunately, I don't have one of those spinny gimmicks for the 365 treatment that Steve does. I'm gonna have to look into that, actually. So I'm just gonna look at it right here. Based on this overall, at the get-go, when I first got these figures, I wasn't too excited about them because I just felt like it was just another DC Trinity set of figures. So this one in particular, being a new addition to the DC McFarlane Multiverse figure line, I was really excited to get. So I'm gonna go ahead and give this one a 9 out of 10. It's pretty generous, but I do believe that it's just different enough from the Damian Wayne Robin to warrant a slightly higher rating. Of course, that's also just my personal opinion. You guys may feel differently, and if you do, please let us know in the comments below. And moving right along. All right, next we have this DC Dark Knight's Death Metal Superman. And just by the look of it, you can tell it is very different from the typical Superman we're used to seeing. It's more of a ripped t-shirt grunge type of look. There's something going on with his arm. And if I'm correct, based on the reviews, if memory is correct, then he is infected with some like essence of dark side. Don't quote me, but like some essence of dark side that's kind of taking over his persona. So he's that's how far it's gotten into his system, is taking over his arm, and he's fighting it off using these little brass knuckle gimmick things. So let's get a little bit more into that with the card. Again, with the figure photography, not the biggest fan, but that's not the whole point. Anywho, Superman, Dark Knight's Death Metal. Real name, Kal-El Clark Kent, adoptive name. Height, 6'3". Weight, 235 pounds. Following the universe-shattering events of Dark Knight's metal, the Earth is enveloped by the dark multiverse and has transformed into a hellish landscape twisted beyond recognition. Now, Superman has been separated from Batman, Wonder Woman, and the other DC superheroes, and is being held captive in a solar prison on New Apokolips. He must fight to survive so that he can reunite with his fellow heroes and save the DC multiverse. Yeah, it's pretty intense. Now, let's take a closer look at him. So yeah, you see his longer hair there. Kind of like how they originally did, like when he came back from the dead back in like the 90s. His eyes are glowing red like his heat vision. Got that apocalypse arm. Sorry, not apocalypse. Got that dark side arm, like rocky skin like Darkseid has. The chains are made of that soft plastic, so they're a little more malleable in positioning. Has this ribboning effect on like his arm wraps and his boot wraps, which by the way are sick. They have like this really really deep Spawn vibe going for them, and I'm there for it. I like again, death metal. It's very grungy, very hardcore metal looking Superman. Honestly, it was my I think going into this my least anticipated figure out of the four. But looking at it now close up, it's actually a lot cooler than I had initially given it credit for at first glance. So, in all fairness, considering the detail, the 22 points of articulation that is typical with at least most McFarlane figures. Oh yeah, let's see if he does that butt kick thing that Steve talks about. Nope, definitely not. Didn't think so. His boots are way too huge. So, oh yeah, his hands also, he also did come with a couple of spare hands. Again, I prefer these closed fists. Those spare hands I just kind of keep in the packaging for another day if I need it. Anyway, being my least anticipated, I was thinking the rating would be somewhere around like a 7, not very high. But looking at it now, I'm going to be just a little bit more generous than that. And I'm going to go with honestly, just an 8. I'm going to go with an 8 on this figure. Which again, isn't anything to sneeze at, but definitely not the highest. It's not my favorite Superman figure, but it's definitely unique in a lot of ways, as you can obviously tell. So 8 is what I'm going to give this guy for now. Now to move right along, we have our third out of the 4 figures, our penultimate figure of this wave, Wonder Woman. And clearly she looks so badass. I mean, you got Wonder Woman with frosted tips. This crazy looking crown looks like something out of a Thor movie. The shoulder pads that are literally some kind of creature's skull. And my favorite part of this whole design is this friggin' chainsaw. I swear to God, when I read the debut of this chainsaw in one of the death metal comics, I legitimately laughed my ass off. My wife was wondering what I was doing, just laughing at myself. But, you know, nerd stuff. Let's read about that. Oh, wait, also, reason why it was so funny is, I forgot to mention, because in case you don't know, in the comics, the chainsaw is invisible. So she's literally sawing through somebody with an invisible chainsaw. Should have mentioned. Invisible chainsaw. Anyway, I digress. So, there's that figure photography. The background's pretty decent. The grounding's cool. Wonder Woman, Dark Knight's death metal. Real name, Diana Prince. Height, 6 foot. Weight, 165 pounds. I'm certain that's all muscle. Following the universe-shattering events of Dark Knight's metal, the Earth is enveloped by the dark multiverse and has transformed into a hellish landscape, twisted beyond recognition. Oh, that sounds like a little bit of deja vu, but this is where it gets different. Now, the Batman who laughs rules the planet. And in an attempt to defeat him, Wonder Woman uses her invisible jet and lasso of truth to forge a new weapon, the Chainsaw of Truth. Yeah, exactly. And cut down the evil that stands in her way. Teaming up with Batman, Superman, and the other DC superheroes, Wonder Woman is on a mission to save the DC multiverse. I don't care what supervillain you are. I ain't standing in nobody's way with a chainsaw, let alone a chainsaw I can't see, let alone a chainsaw I can't see forged by Wonder Woman. But let's take a gander. Closer look. So yeah, there's that chainsaw. And look at that craftsmanship on there. Obviously a little bit of a, paint smudge a little bit here and there, but who cares? It's supposed to be invisible anyway. They could have easily gotten away with saying that it was included and not even having it, just on the sheer fact that it's invisible. A little bit warped. I might have to heat that up a little bit. Maybe. Actually, that's okay. Yeah, look at that. Wonder Woman with frosted tips. That's insane. The cape. I love when they put a cape on Wonder Woman because it doesn't happen often. And it's always special when they do. Like when they make a drastic but temporary change like that to characters, like how on the Superman of this wave, there is no cape. Whereas on the Wonder Woman of this wave, there is. It's really cool, very empowering looking. And look at her face. The detail that went into the face, the craftsmanship, the paint, it's all perfect. The outfit is great. Every wrinkle and crevice of the armor and clothing, right down to the boots, on heels. Wonder Woman kicking butt in heels with an invisible chainsaw of truth. There's those skulls. No idea what kind of animal that is. I'm not even going to hazard to guess. But anyway, let's see. So for this Wonder Woman, again, I wasn't as much looking forward to the Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman of this wave, just because I felt as though it was just another set of the DC Trinity in action figure form, and I already have some of each. But I guess you can never have too many. And when they look this different, I suppose it's acceptable. And again, looking at it now in person, it's fantastic. I love that I can have this in my collection now. And to look at it, it's probably my favorite out of that Trinity in this wave, at least. So with everything considered, I'm going to say that this figure is a 9 out of 10, just like Robin King. Not quite in the newness, not quite in the aspect of it being new, like Robin King, but just an overall appeal. 9 out of 10. And last but not least, we have Batman from Dark Knight's Death Metal. And again, I wasn't as excited about having the DC Trinity again, but I do think it's forgivable based on what we're looking at here. And speaking of what we're looking at here, let's talk about that guitar. I really shouldn't be as surprised that this is a thing, especially coming out of the event that introduced us to such bizarre additions to the Batman mythos, as like a Batman who's a monster truck, a Batman who transferred his consciousness into the T-Rex in his Batcave. There's so many more. Oh, and the Batman that becomes Lobo, the Batman who frags, definitely my favorite. And I could go on and on about that, but I won't. So I'm going to go right ahead and read this. Batman, Dark Knight's Death Metal. Real name, Bruce Wayne. Height, 6 foot 2 inches. Weight, 210 pounds. Following the uterus shattering, blah, 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 blah. The earth is enveloped by yada, 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 and transformed into a hellish, yeah, yep. Okay. Willing to sacrifice his own humanity for the greater good, Batman wields an evil Black Lantern power ring, which grants him the power to resurrect the dead. Now, leading an army of zombies and riding a Batcycle made of bones, the Dark Knight wages war against the Batman who laughs and his omnipotent goddess, Perpetua, in his mission to save the DC Multiverse. Now, Batman's intense, but that's a whole other level of intense. But yeah, that's honestly my favorite part about this version of Batman in this story, is that he actually does have a Black Lantern power ring, which they actually do kind of show in the design here. They can't go too detailed in on it. It's hard to see. see if I can. No, hard to see. But honestly, it's they don't really need to. That's attention to detail that they don't need to have. But the fact that they went that far is definitely saying something. I'm absolutely a huge fan of how McFarlane designs his figures, and he really goes above and beyond. So you got his head. That's obviously the same as most Batman figures, especially reminiscent of other Batman figures from the DC McFarlane Multiverse figures, like sorry, brain fart. The Dark Multiverse version of Batman that has all the guns and weapons kind of looks like a Batman Punisher hybrid. It looks like that with the short ears. And speaking of the ears, that's definitely something I look for when I am shopping for Batman figures, is the ears. If they're longer, gotta make sure they're not bent, because that's something it's really hard to fix. And the blades on his gauntlets, like example here. This one's a little bent, but it's a softer rubber, so I guess that's more likely to happen. And had I jumped on the bandwagon of this wave a lot earlier, I would have been able to be a lot more picky, but I slept on it for way too long, and I just had to, grasp at straws to get these guys to settle for what I could find. So, but having said that, I'm not as disappointed as I thought I was going to be. The trench coat is sick. The boots are awesome. Very, at least to me, reminiscent of Gene Simmons with his badass Godzilla boots from back in the day. Let's see if we can get him posed with this guitar. Actually, first, let's look at this guitar, just appreciate it up close. So, I don't even want to hazard to guess what the hell is up with this, like, head with the tongue on the guitar. Probably sort of a nod to Gene Simmons with the tongue. I don't know. That does seem to be a lot of inspiration to a lot of this, especially with his trick guitars and fancy guitars, like his axe bass that he had. So, hence why I think the scythe gimmick on here is so cool. Because it's also a weapon, obviously. Batman's not just shredding for the sake of shredding for a concert. He's trying to save the multiverse. So, let's see if we can pose that a little bit. I can't pose it as well as they did in the card, but I'm just gonna do this with what I can. So, looking at this, all things considered, I wouldn't say that even as cool as it is with this guitar, I wouldn't say it's quite as high as the Robin King or Wonder Woman on here, but it's also not as much of a meh factor as the Superman was for me. So I'm going to put it right in the middle and give it an 8.5. I think that's fair for this figure in particular. I definitely should have got the bat cycle made of like bones that looks like a skeleton of a bat in the shape of a motorcycle to go with this. I think that would have boosted up its rating a crap ton. But I don't have that, so I'm going to have to go on another hunt for that. And finally, we are going to build Darkfather, a version of Batman from the Dark Multiverse who, well, for lack of a better description, basically becomes Darkseid in his own right. And I'm going to start with the torso, obviously. Pretty sure, if I'm not mistaken, the torso came from the Robin King's packaging. And I'm going to build from the legs up. So the legs, I do remember, came with Batman. And they don't go in so badly. They actually go in fairly easy compared to a lot of things. Like I heard the Last Night on Earth wave that McFarlane released. Was the Build-A-Figure in there was not received well, as it was apparently not connecting very well or successfully at all. So I'm thankful that this is shaping up to be a good Build-A-Figure. Now look at that, they even got the treads on his boots. That's awesome. And little holes there for pegs on stands if you do have an extra stand to give him. And let's see, the arms. Okay, so that's actually spiky. Hard plastic. Kind of like I wish Batman's gauntlet blades were, but beggars can't be choosers, and not gonna lie, these kind of hurt to grab, so I'm kind of dreading putting these on right now. Typical shoulder sockets. It snaps in nice, that's good. Luckily, the elbows move relatively easily, but again, you have to grab the spikes to do it, and I guess it all depends on how desperately you want to pose this guy, or how dynamically, rather. Okay, but pop that other one in. Oh, perfect. Okay, so that elbow just does not want to move. I'm not going to fight that. And the arms came with, yeah, the arms I'm pretty sure came with Superman. Now, the final portion, the cape and head. The cape has this little joining socket right there to go into this peg, as well as on the underside of its cowl to attach to this little peg on the chest. So let's get that on there. Soft rubber, so it's not hard to place. Let's look at that head. So honestly, nothing particularly special per se about this head sculpt. It's really cool and very detailed, but it's essentially Darkseid cosplaying as Batman in a look. So let's pop that on there. And I'm really glad it's not the bigger horns, or ears rather, on top of his mask like in most, because this would hurt to try to get on, I'm not gonna lie. And it's already giving me a hard time, so it's gonna poke me. That should do. And there we go. Have to back him way up. Yeah, so it has all the same points of articulation, I'm pretty sure, as the rest of the figures. Yeah, let's get a close look at them. 22 points of articulation, if I'm not mistaken. I think it's a perfect. I mean, again, I wasn't the biggest fan of this idea. I thought it was kind of just another variation of Batman, but because there was a Darkseid factor on it, I was a little more excited about it than I would be for, I don't know, say a different version, a different generic version of Batman that was released in this. Anywho, it's a perfect blend of, I would say, aspects of Darkseid Batman and the let's say ambiance that death metal was trying to give off. What with the crazy teen angsty Hot Topic Spencer's spiky gauntlets, Darkseid's classic knee-high boots, and the Batman, the classic blue Batman outfit, all blended together in probably not the most thought out, but a very creative and unique take on Batman. So the Build-A-Figure itself, if I'm to give it a rating, I'm gonna say an 8 out of 10. Yeah, it's cool and it's big. Like if I put it beside, for example, say Superman, which is the 7-inch, we're looking at probably 8 inches on this thing. I'm not good at eyeballing measurements, but if I were to guess, I'd say it's about an 8-inch scale, which is pretty cool. Yeah, 8 out of 10. All right, and there you have it. The DC Multiverse McFarlane Dark Father figure, Build-A-Figure wave. And I pose them in a little bit more dynamic poses, through Batman's guitar over his shoulder, because speaking as a guitarist, there is no guitarist in the world that hasn't at least once thrown their guitar over the shoulder and thought they were a badass. Oh, and also, while I'm thinking about it, because I just noticed and remembered, but a fun thing about the chainsaw, because as you could probably you could probably hazard to guess that a lot of the death metal inspirations come from actual rock musicians in history. And there's a band called Jackal that my dad and I used to listen to in the car all the time. And they have a song called Lumberjack, in which they actually use a real chainsaw as an instrument. They take the chain off of it, so it just makes the sounds, and they basically play it using the muffler. Seriously, go check it out. It's wicked. Whether or not that's your thing, it's definitely something to check out. Just to say you did. So that is it. And before I forget again, like I almost did, let's plug those socials. So for When Geeks Collide, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram by typing in When Geeks Collide. On Twitter, type in WGC Network and give us a follow. Anchor FM, you can find the WGC Network podcast, written just like that as well. Myself, you can find me on Facebook as Gunnar Lang, on Instagram or Twitter, and type in IC_Gunnar Lang. Either of them works. If you want to go a step farther than that, I have my own comic book company. I just recently started. I have my first project available right now, Horizon Comics Spectrum. And as I just said, my company is called Horizon Comics. You can find my company on Facebook and Instagram just by putting on Horizon Comics with an X. Now, give us a like if you like the video. Give us a dislike if you dislike the video. Either way, it helps us out with the YouTube algorithm. Having said that, geeks